In 1832, Louisa May Alcott was born in Germantown, Pennsylvania, as the second of four daughters to philosopher-teacher Bronson Alcott and his wife Abigail Alcott. Both of her parents were strong reformers whose lives were curbed by the ideology of transcendentalism. Having grown up in Boston and Concord, Massachusetts, Alcott lived amongst several majorly influential figures of their culture during the 1800s, such as Margaret Fuller, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and Nathaniel Hawthorne. In Louisa May Alcott's 1868 novel entitled Little Women, readers have noticed trends regarding Alcott's inclination toward feminism, both through her choice of words and specific traits chosen for her characters within the book. Louisa May Alcott grew up in a home where her parents were both very strong advocates for Reformation and lived by the ideology of transcendentalism, the struggling of individuals to attaining a level of divinity and spirituality that allowed for new understandings found throughout their time based on literary independence. This shaped her childhood atmosphere to become largely political. Though Alcott's father was close with several individual ideologists during their time, Bronson Alcott often failed to take good care of his family. According to Louisa, he was, quote, a man in a balloon, with his family holding the ropes trying to tie him down to the earth. It did not seem to bother him that his family was literally starving. For this reason, Louisa witnessed her mother's strength in living dependently of her husband on a regular basis. Her mother observed most women marrying men as a solution to their economic situations, but felt as though she enjoyed independence and freedom more than the luxury that marriage often provided women with. After her husband failed at his dream to run an experimental vegetative farm centered around transcendentalism, Louisa's mother felt as though she had to help her and her family a decent living. She became one of the earliest known social workers, worked as a seamstress, and later ran her very own employment agency. Having observed her mother's strength and determination throughout their family's many difficult living situations, Louisa longed to one day exhibit the same strength and determination as her mother. Though Alcott's father seemed to have completely abandoned his family at times, he and his family still managed to hold decent relationships with several famous literary authors. S. Margaret Fuller, who considered herself to be an example of the abilities of women during her time and took a large stand by writing hundreds of essays about women's suffrage, taught alongside Alcott's father in a Boston school. Ralph Waldo Emerson introduced Alcott to several writings by Goethe. Henry David Thoreau taught Alcott much about the world and the nature therein, and Nathaniel Hawthorne lived near the Alcott family residence for several years. A couple abolitionists also heavily influenced Alcott, such as William Lloyd Garrison and Alcott's uncle Samuel May. Bronson was extremely dedicated to instilling traits in his children that were admirable to his Puritan heritage, such as self-denial and self-criticism. Though Louisa remained very attached to her father for many years, she began to resent her father's efforts to withhold her independence in life, which resulted in many of her writings relating to young women coping with the difficulty of expressing their uniqueness. Louisa was very different from her father. Bronson found her too aggressive, too willful, and too fierce for his definition of feminism. Bronson Alcott's strong influence on his daughters with regard to the subordination of women within the American culture likely served as a turning point in Louisa's mind to one day become a woman of independence herself. Due to her struggle to maintain individuality, her father's deepest wishes for his family to live life as it should be, Louisa May Alcott would one day grow up and share her desire to reform society by educating women and curbing racial prejudice. A decent way into the novel Little Women, Jo's mother writes Jo a letter describing, quote, with how much satisfaction I watch your efforts, your trials, failures, or successes, and I heartily believe in the sincerity of your resolution, since it begins to bear fruit. Jo immediately perks up in excitement, exclaiming how thankful she is that someone has noticed her efforts towards greatness. Again, we see a growing sense of Jo's dependence in herself to accomplish what she believes to be a success. Throughout Little Women, we see many relationships between the Alcott family and the March family, the most obvious similarity being that each family contains four sisters, all of whom Alcott writes about in her book. Though the fictitious March family held high expectations within their family, Louisa May Alcott's sole motivation during her childhood was to keep her family from becoming poor. In fact, when Louisa became a nurse for a period of time during her adult life, her father claimed as though he felt he was sending his only son to war. As was the apparent case with the character of Jo March in Little Women, Alcott's legacy spoke much to her readers about female empowerment and the capability of women to live their lives completely independent of men. Though Jo often found herself making mistakes, she also succeeded, at least in her mind, and really did not care to follow the path that most stereotypic women of her time took. Louisa was quite similar in this way also. The chief tension occurs between a liberal feminist ideal of autonomy and a cultural feminist idea of connectedness. Some argue that Jo provides a model of independence even if she ultimately capitulates to marriage, others that she embodies a sense of connectedness with a community of women. Not only did the March girls, specifically Jo, realize that they were not bound by the social restraints placed upon women to do feminine things during their time, but many women today understand that we are afforded the same liberty, if not to a much greater extent. For many reasons, but to name a few, Louisa May Alcott was a feminist. She remained unmarried, earned money, and was in control of her situation. Alcott's childhood and adulthood shaped the course through which she wrote Little Women. Louisa May Alcott believed in the concept of power amongst the female race, so much so that her novel Little Women clearly mirrors what seemed to be her most earnest belief in life, that women are truly capable of making a significant difference in our world without the aid of men. Since Louisa and her father's death in March 1888, many women have resolved to take fate by the throat and shake the living out of it, just as Alcott did. To her, a challenge was but a mere obstacle that would soon be overcome, accomplished, and remembered.